Welcome back to the Capes Cast podcast, everyone. I'm Jeremy,
And I'm Ryan.
and today we are going to talk about gods.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
yeah, we'll be talking about the whole series. I actually didn't pull all mine out like I said I was going to, but that's okay.
Because I think
Uh,
the last one we did was the first issue. Was
yeah,
it?
yes, it was. Yes,
Yeah.
it was the first. That was the first one. Um, Man, it's been 8 months. It's already here and come and gone.
Right?
That's crazy.
I
Uh,
know.
so for those that don't know, Gods was a series that started in fall of last year, right?
Yeah.
Started fall of last year, and it's by Jonathan Hickman and Valerio Schiti. Um, for anybody that's been following Hickman's work, you kind of know that he's a big fan of like larger sweeping changes to the universe he works in, to like just kind of shaking things up and making these big grand revelations that sometimes take years to pay off and years to even get revealed.
Right.
So, and this very much felt like one of those books, um, because there's a lot of stuff planted in here that one is it's being used by other writers right now. So it does like kind of serve as a cornerstone for some of those changes that other writers are doing or
Right.
using, that he did in Gods.
Yeah, because
Uh
objects that were created in here were in like Immortal Thor, for example.
yeah, right. And like we've seen the Skinner box, or like how
Yeah.
we've seen the pages like written by Hickman in random issues last year,
Right.
like in the summer and fall of last year, and to lead up to Gods and kind of like show its greater connections to the Marvel universe.
Right.
Um, Valerio Schiti, he kind of great artist, man.
Yeah.
Like absolutely just phenomenal. But he first got on my radar like around Judgment Day, because that's I mean, I
Well, he
know
did
he
he did some work for the Hickman's Avengers run. He did some issues for that too.
did. You're right. He did.
Yeah.
You're right. I think he also did some of the art for Empire.
Yep.
So he's had a pretty consistent career with Marvel. But
Right.
I don't really think I first took note, like first was like, oh, I recognize this artist, or I know him by name, until I think till Judgment Day.
Right.
Judgment Day, I love that event. And it was such a big, grand scale event for Earth.
Yeah.
Uh, but and then we just get the luxury of having two great creators now working on Gods.
By the
And
way,
it
let me tell you, man, this trade is going to read beautifully. I think when all
yeah,
collected, I think it's going to be such a great book. I almost want
definitely,
to
no,
get the
definitely.
trade as well because I feel like it'll read so well all put together, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. I totally agree with you. I'm gonna revisit this probably here at some point, and just reread it all like
I
in
mean,
one
you
go.
have to with Hickman. There's so many details that fall by the wayside month by month.
Yeah, I mean, and we were talking about that the other day, like just with like some of the changes that, or some of the things that happened in this issue in particular, like the Black Swans, for example, like they have a brand new
Yeah,
purpose now. Whereas before they were kind of just wandering lost without a master, because Doom had left them like high and dry
right,
at the end of the seventh Cosmos, like at the end of Secret Wars.
right.
So like, and that's just one of the many changes that God's like puts into effect. Because like
Right.
it kicks off because it almost feels like a natural continuation of like Hickman's Marvel, like
Yeah.
his, and we've talked about this. Like, I feel like if you were to just read like Hickman's Marvel, like you could get a complete Marvel series like
Right.
beginning to end.
Well, I
Like,
mean,
and
even
it's
when you go from Secret Wars into Ultimate Invasion, it's like boom, there's the maker. Like
yeah,
you go,
and even this,
yeah,
because like th- the way that this is structured hinges on Secret Wars, because
right,
it's the collapse of the seventh cosmos and the birth of the eighth. So it shakes up the hierarchy, and the way that a lot of these gods worked, the way that they like interacted with each other are changed. Like there's so many changes to them, and it's going to be a lot to keep up with. There'll be even more stuff down the line, I'm sure, to like add to it.
right.
But I mean, as of right now, like we have we have Oblivion who has a new look and almost has like a bit of a new purpose as
Yeah.
from what we've seen in Immortal Thor.
Well,
Or
that's one thing about this too, is like it's so unassuming. You see these gods and they look like just normal figures, and then you see them like whether it's your mind's eye,
yeah, and
you
what
see them for who they are, and you're like, this it's awesome. And we see that finally for the powers that be. Or is that the natural
yes.
orders of things? Yeah, no, that's
Uh,
powers that be.
well, yeah, I mean this, yeah, well, because okay, that's the larger change, I think, more than anything else, is you have these two factions that exist now, the powers that be and the natural order of things, and one is science based and one is magic based.
Yeah, I
And
kind of look at it as the powers that be as like the magic of all of creation itself, and
yeah,
and natural order
right,
of things is science.
right. And at least that's how I understand it too. But like I and this is just probably from us not knowing a whole lot about the two factions, but like when did they show when did they show up? You know, like were they here at the birth of the at the eighth cosmos, or did they kind of like stumble their way into it? Like that's what I'm interested in, and we don't really get too many answers that I could find
Right.
about that, and maybe that's on purpose, but like and then like there's a hierarchy established within those as well. Like you have for the science side of things, you have the centaurs,
Hmm.
and they're like there was what 100 of them, or
Yeah.
there was supposed to be 100 of them. But by the time we get around, they're starting to dwindle. Like there's not as many left.
Right.
Um, and they're in opposite to the avatar, of the powers that be.
Right.
So it's there's this dichotomy between the two, and like and then you have like the actual main characters of the story. Like you've got Win and Aiko and Dimitri, and like and just their relationship. Like you have Gwen and Aiko who are married, but they can't be together because of the roles that they play.
Yeah.
But then you also have Dimitri, like who works for one side, but he's also paired up with Win,
Right.
and is like tasked with like basically just seeing the universe essentially.
Right.
So like why is this the thing? How long has it been going on for? Like are there like have there been others, or has it just been Win? Because we have Mia, who's another one, and you get some rule breaks with her and Aiko because they attempt to do the same thing as Win and Dimitri, but Aiko is very deceptive about it.
Right. And it
So
basically basically stunts all of Mia's powers the way that I go
yeah,
about it.
right, and well, and then in this issue we see her again, but she's at her full power.
Right.
So what like what actually happened? And this is all again, this is Win missing time, us missing time. Like we don't really know what's going
Right.
on
I
in
actually had to
all
go
these
to the
years.
seventh issue before reading this because I was like, what the hell did I miss? Did I miss something? Because
Yeah,
you
because
open
it
this up
wasn't
and it's like
just
a
it was
hundred
just
years later.
Dimitri, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Because it was when he went to find his parents. Um, yeah. What do you think of this as a whole? Because it's weird because there are times like when I look back on it, like even as like the months have gone by, like I've looked back on each issue and been like, I could read that as a single issue and be fine. But then I'll read like other issues and I'm like, this really needs to be part of like you have to read it together.
Yeah.
So
I
like,
I love it. I think it's just I think like Hickman probably had maybe like 10 or 12 issues. Because this one just seems so like boom, like we gotta end this. Like this
yeah,
issue. And
yeah,
not that it's terribly done. It's
no,
well done. It's an awesome issue, but I think you could just tell that Hickman wanted to do more and it kind of just was packed into this basically.
yeah, because there's and this is like really where we get into like the high concept stuff, with
Or even I wouldn't have even mind. I know a lot of people probably would mind this, but I wouldn't have mind if they did what the first issue did for the last issue, where it's like, here's a big $10 issue to just end this.
yeah, no, I would have been all for that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think just visually, this is my favorite issue out of the bunch.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I just and I'm such a sucker for all of these like the cosmology of Marvel.
Well, I'm
I,
also a sucker of it because, like I've been saying, it feels like Vertigo Marvel in the sense that you're seeing behind the curtains of the universe of like the entire
yes,
multiverse of Marvel.
yes,
You know, you're seeing right behind the curtains of all these beings, how they act, what their dichotomy is, what their hierarchy is. You know, everything like that. You're seeing literally the powers that be of Marvel. Like,
right. And and there's just always been something about that is like, and it's not so much knowing the secrets, you know what I mean? Like the like being having the Wizard of Oz revealed behind the curtain. Like it's not so much that for me. I I like the weird. I almost like not being able to understand these things in full because it gives me that sense of like intrigue,
yeah,
like wonder. It's constantly making me chase like what's next? Like what other information can I get from these beings? Because it's just not enough.
well, I think
And
as a
good.
Hickman fan, I think that that's the best place to be is being
Right.
lost, so that he can send you things where you're like, "Oh, I found the rope now." Like
Yeah.
Hickman does that, where he'll throw you the rope when he feels like you need it. You know,
Yeah.
and
And and I think that's a really, really hard thing to do, especially in modern comics. It's really hard to grab somebody's attention. Well, one, to grab their attention and keep it long term, but also grab their attention in a way that you can almost put a pause on something for like a solid year
right,
and then just drop this bombshell of, hey, these two things are connected. And you may not even see that connection for another year.
right,
You know, like there's just something about that that I don't think that, and to speak on the other side of that, like you have some writers that literally, for whatever reason, either wait too long and it's several years before there's a payoff and it's not a good enough payoff where it doesn't make enough sense, or or you've got some writers that pay off way too soon and it's like the next issue.
right,
So like you're almost stuck in between this like, is the writer talented enough to be able to like slow burn this and make it still be interesting a year or so later, or are we stuck in this instant gratification to where like every single reveal has to be issue after issue after issue after issue?
right,
So like Hickman does a really good job of balancing those, I think, and that's what sets him apart from a lot of other writers.
right,
Is we and even in his Avengers, there are plenty of times where we've gotten like a quick payoff for something big, but it's like a something small, like 20 issues ago, and all of a sudden it's important, and
right.
this character or this object's role has been revealed now.
Well, I mean, look at Secret Wars. That was a 4 year buildup to
Yeah,
this whole thing, and some things were mentioned in the beginning that weren't
yeah,
handled until Secret Wars. So
right, right.
it's
So
it's awesome.
I
How
love
did you
comics, man.
feel about seeing Older Strange in this? That really blew my mind in this.
That was pretty cool, man. That was
Yeah,
badass. I love all the character designs. I think like as much as I love the story and I love like all of these beings like talking and like interacting with each other, I just love the art.
yeah,
They all look so cool, man. Like I and just to speak on the issue itself, like before, because I just on issue 8 at least, because this is definitely my favorite issue, I think, of the bunch.
right.
Um, because we get everything pretty much wrapped up pretty nicely. Like we find out what the in-betweener's up to. We learn Dimitri's fate after the end of the last issue and him hunting for his parents. Um, we 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 kind of get a glimpse into Aiko 100 years later and kind
She's
of
still
where she's
blind
at.
for
Yeah, and she kind of regrets pretty much a lot of it, what she did to Mia, how things have turned with Win, kind of where things have gone in the last 100 years. Um, so then we get Win, he just it's an AIM facility, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So he just like goes through an AIM facility and drops it looks like that little thing that uh what the hell was his name? Cubics core used in
Oh
like the
yeah,
third
yeah.
issue. You know what I mean? And he dropped that and it summoned Oblivion and it wiped everything out.
Right.
So Wynn has one of those. He plugs it into a superconducting super collider, and it powers this machine that lets him time travel to basically to all the important moments in his life since he's become the Avatar.
Right.
Um, and this, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but this woman that appears here, is this the same woman in the very beginning with the wings and the triangle on her forehead?
We see in the first issue.
No, in the very first page of this one, of this
Oh,
issue.
let me see.
She says, "A war was fought, a war was won. Of the enemy pantheon, only these few remain. They are here to surrender fully and completely, truly humbled and defeated. Will you accept
I'm
such
not
submission?"
sure
I'm not.
because
Yeah, I'll
we see her turn in the next page, and she's like some
right. And she's so this is for all intents and purposes Wynn's master, right?
right,
Like she's the one that made the pact with him, allowed him to take on this role and do these things. And in turn, she grants him the power. You know what I mean? Like the ability to do what he does.
right.
And she kind of calls his bluff because she knows that he's looking for something and it's that lost time. Whereas he's just kind of like, he's trying to deceive her, try to lie to her and you know, he, he's doing what I think this character always does is like play it close to the chest, is like always appears like as the aloof, like suave, you know, kind of like the John
Yeah,
Constantine style
literally, I was
character.
going to say it. Yep, literally like
So
Marvel's John Constantine.
yeah, so let me see if I can find, so there, man, there it is. Because there were variants for this that showed all the gods. Like each one had like an homage. Let me see if I can find. Hold on a second. Nope, not a one. All right, well, oh well. I don't
Hmm.
know who that character is, but they look cool. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just thought they might have had a name or if they were somebody else.
sure. I'll
Whatever.
check League of Comic Geeks where they show all the
Yeah,
characters.
yeah. I mean, a quick dig will probably could find out. But yeah, Win just kind of goes throughout time, experiencing like reliving just iconic moments throughout history. It looks like,
Hmm.
you know, you have what appears to be the building of the airplane, or the construction of the first airplane, or you've got the nuclear bomb, you've got landing on the moon, and then a sweet little meetup with the in-betweener. And so we learn now what happened to Win during his time, that was lost. He's still discovering it and like relearning things, but he learns that with the help of the Black Swans, he was frozen or like encased in this crystal and vivisected and like studied, and the in-betweener used him to like basically learn probably more about the universe and what other ways he can obtain power, because it's so funny because like prior to this I feel like the in-betweener was just a character that kind of existed, whereas now I mean, and a lot of these characters just existed because that's what other purpose could they serve.
Right.
So now it almost seems like they have more of like a focused purpose, and the in-betweener is playing a more active role in in the cosmic side of things, and maybe it could lead to something later on down the line, you
Yeah.
know. But the in-betweeners already employed the Black Swans, so it's actively, acquiring power and acquiring forces.
Right.
So who knows what that character's plan is.
Yeah.
Um,
Hopefully, we find out more about him, and
yeah, I mean, we can
I'm
hope
sure
for a second
Ewing's gonna do
volume.
more with them. I'm sure.
Well, who Ewing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
with
well,
with the Skinner
he
boxes
already
and
Oblivion shows up in Thor this week, so I'll
oh, there we go.
tell you
Cool.
that right now. Yeah, so there you go.
There you
And
go.
it's the Oblivion from Gods. It's the worm.
Oh,
Like
cool.
so it's cool, yeah. Uh and then he time travels again to 10,000 years into the future and finds a really, 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 really old and pissed off version of himself. He's just
Yeah.
jaded, man. He so they have a brief chat, and then he sends him on his way, and he gets sent to the point where he is going to marry Aiko. Like
Right.
that's his final destination, basically. And he meets with himself right before, and it's I don't know, this is like a nice like closing couple of pages on everything. He gets to revisit his memories. He gets to, maybe get a different perspective on things and learn something on the way back.
Right.
But as he sits down, his master is there, and she gives him an opportunity, to kind of change things. Like, does she gives him a chance to say, I can change it all. Like, I can make it all go away so that the two of you never worked for us, and you can live happily. Like,
Right.
you can be done. Like, your fight can be finished if that's what you truly want.
Right.
And we're left pretty much, thinking that he just smirks at her.
Right.
We don't really know what his choice is. But it's if he's anything like the John Constantine archetype, we know for a fact he did not give up the magic.
Right.
So it just remains to be seen. And maybe that'll be something that has to do with the next volume, is now that they've chosen their set path, you know, even though Win was given a chance, is Aiko gonna is would Aiko,
Right.
take it back? Like, we see his perspective, and he's actually being given the opportunity to take everything back. And
Right.
it almost alludes to that he doesn't.
Right.
But would Aiko make the same choice?
Right. It almost seems like they flipped, right?
Yeah,
Like Aiko in the beginning was all about her job, not about the relationship. You
right.
know, Win wanted that relationship. So it's almost like it flipped now. Like Aiko would want that now because of all of her regrets. And
Yeah.
I
I
think
mean,
Win
and
knows at like the severity and the importance of everything had going through everything. Because pretty much if he takes the bait here, this whole series gets wiped. Like this
yeah,
never happened. Like this
yeah.
whole story never happened. So
Which would almost be like symbolic, because when you think about the first issue, those events never really happened,
right,
because it was all Win did a little timey-wimey thing and like wrapped it up in a heartbeat.
right.
At least to the outside, but like the people that were in the know knew that it happened.
But it also would make sense too that he does do it because it's also like, why haven't we ever heard of Win before this? Like we
Yeah,
never have. Why? It
yeah,
might be because he was this thing and then wiped himself from
yeah.
this. And that could be why Strange never mentions Win in his series or anything, because maybe he did work with them, but then everything got wiped.
Yeah, and it's funny because the only time we see Win and Doctor Strange, well, he's in like a particular issue, and it's during that General Strange arc.
Right.
It's when Strange, it's like it's the I want to say it's the Juan Gideon issue where it's like Strange through the years, like of the 5,000 year war, and he shows up at like year of 100, excuse me, like 100 or 1,000, and basically just says like, "Hey, can I have all your stuff when you're dead?" And he's like, "No." Like, it's just a brief, funny encounter. So like, it's one of those things that maybe because we've never heard about Win or any of these characters, because Strange is like almost sworn to secrecy. You know what I mean? Like there's this unspoken vow of like we can't talk about it.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, but
I don't know. I think it's pretty cool because like I've been trying to theorize on it. And Hickman, that's what he wants us
oh
doing.
yeah, yeah,
And most of the time when Hickman gets us theorizing, the real answer is something we didn't even think was possible.
right.
So but the way I'm taking it is, I think, I honestly think Wynn did it. I think he took
You
the,
think so?
I think he took the chance because that would mean that he's completely wiped, which means to the whole Marvel universe, it's almost like he's a ghost and didn't exist, which is why we didn't know about him to begin with.
Could be. I mean, and that's a really like it's like a clean way to still be able to have this story exist and not exist
Exactly.
at the same time.
Because we're
But
seeing in this where it's like 150 years in the future and now. Like it's like all at the same like it's basically saying time is all one big moment, but this is the part of the one moment. So it's
okay,
like
let's say that is the case. What does that mean for some of the other characters that one have already appeared in other books and could appear later on? Like, do we see a version of Win and Aiko and they're just unsuspecting to everything and they get drawn back in?
it wouldn't surprise me, but I think in this case where Win gets wiped, I think the gods that still interacted with them because they're outside of time. Like
Right.
time doesn't
Well,
matter to
right.
those.
I just mean like okay, like because it really does seem like the in-betweener is taking a more active role in things. So
Exactly.
what happens if it escalates and you have characters like maybe Thor, who is starting to interact with these higher cosmic beings, like he's interacting with elder gods, he's interacting with Oblivion, it inevitably going to interact with probably the bigger hierarchy.
Right.
So like, what does that mean for the future? Like, if Thor eventually does reach this level, like to a point where he has some kind of cosmic awareness, he'll probably have known about Win
Right.
and that he doesn't exist. And is that something that's going to draw some of these characters back in? Is because there's a really, really big threat, you
Right.
know, and who knows? Like that's just, I mean, at hell, that could even lead to a spiritual sequel to Secret Wars.
Right. Because it seems like Ewing wants to tap into this world a little bit and use it.
Yeah, and you can tell he's just a sucker for anything. Like he loves the high cosmic concept stuff.
Right.
Like his ultimates, bro, is bar none one of the best things Marvel's ever put out. And
Right.
it's just all that. It's literally just all cosmic crazy shit all the time. It's awesome.
Yeah. I just think
Uh
that I think this won't be the last time we see Win. We will see him eventually, and
yeah,
when we do, we will know what his choice was. I think.
yeah.
You know.
Which I'm conflicted because part of me is like, hey man, let him rest. He could do his thing, he can get what he
Yeah.
wants. But also on the other side of things, I really want to see like where his character could go.
Yeah. Because I mean, if you remember, I don't remember which issue it was. It might have been the second or third, but like that whole time, that whole part where basically Strange and Win have to rewind time while time's getting erased in front of them, and they're like
Yeah,
moving backwards in time. Well, that was so cool. Like that was such a cool
there,
idea. And it pretty much
yeah.
means that like in these situations, if Win was never there, who stopped it? Like who stopped these things that did
Well,
that?
right, and I feel like and I feel like that's the finer point is like, and that I think that's gonna be could be missed by some readers because like it it almost seems like anytime these cosmic forces are in play, there's almost like I was never here
Right.
of like kind of thing that happens at the end,
Right.
which is fitting because they don't want regular everyday people like AIM soldiers knowing that there are these like unimaginable forces at play
Right.
that that exist outside of time and space and basically rule all. Like there has to be this illusion of freedom and this illusion of you can make your own choices and do these things. And that's the other part I love about all those concepts and those characters is it's
Same.
like nothing, everything and nothing at the same time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think it's awesome that
So
we
cool.
finally get to see these people too, like these
Yeah,
gods. You finally get
yeah,
to see
I
them.
love it. Uh, out of everything like at Marvel Hickman, like where would you place this? Like, you know what I mean? Like in your
Ah, I'm gonna be honest. I probably have this under his Avengers run, you know, because while I do like a lot of what the Ultimate Universe is doing right now, I do think also that
there's just something about that time, dude.
yeah, there was some about that time,
It was something
especially
else, man.
if you read it all together now, and it's just such a complete and tight knit story that
Yeah,
Avengers between
Yeah.
Avengers, New Avengers, and going into Secret Wars was just it just really felt like Hickman had, the Pepe Sylvia Charlie meme, with all the post-it notes like leading together and just, like
Dude,
everything felt like that.
he was cooking with the sauce, man, back then. Like
Yeah,
whatever he was using, man, whatever he was doing recreationally, who knows, bro? But that man was blowing minds.
right. And Infinity is my favorite Thanos event.
Oh,
So
dude.
like, Infinity is my
And like,
favorite.
yeah, and it's funny because I don't really Thanos as a character doesn't really mean anything to me, but like he's so good in
Yeah,
Infinity. So
yeah,
good.
it's awesome.
Such a good ass event,
But
dude.
I would have it under that, because while I do love the Ultimate Universe, I think that the whole setup for the Ultimate Universe was pretty inconsistent.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it was Brian Hitch, them working together, whatever. But it just kind of felt like the Ultimate Invasion series could have been 8 issues.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And again, and I just think we're kind of at the point now, like we're almost in like a new Hickman era where we just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like when Avengers was like already underway and we had a good like by the time Infinity rolled around, I think people were kind of starting to grasp about how big this story would be,
Hmm.
or how big that story would be. Whereas now, like we just have to wait and see. We have between Gods and the Ultimate Universe, you've got maybe 25 issues of content.
Yeah.
Whereas his Avengers, he has 100 issues, like from and that's not even including his Fantastic Four,
Right.
any of his Shield, like any of the
Which
stuff he
all
did,
read
like the
great
Shield.
all together. If you were to
Yes,
just read all of those together and skip everything else that Marvel did and just read that, you get such a cohesive history
yeah,
and story.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, man. Like one day we're gonna see like the Marvel Universe by Jonathan Hickman and
Yeah.
on like a trade paper on like an omnibus or something.
And I'll be there. I'll be buying it, man. Like,
Dude, it's gonna be sick.
you know.
That's about all the time we got for today, guys. If you have not read Gods, please go out and read it.
Yes.
A lot of it is now available on Marvel Unlimited. It will soon be out in trade paperback, I'm sure. And if you can find the single issues, pick up the single issues. The first one's $10, but it's almost 100 pages and it's a full complete story. You don't find that a lot in comics, especially with the series that was a limited series, and that first issue basically being an entire graphic novel in one.
Right.
So and then basically the 7 issues that follow are just a bunch of bonus content, and it just expands these characters, the world that they inhabit, and all of the concepts that are being presented. Uh, Great art, great story. One of the most interesting things I think Marvel has done with cosmology
Yeah.
and since Secret Wars.
Right.
I I just want more of it. I can't get
Yeah.
enough.
Give me more Vertigo Marvel and who knows, maybe in next upcoming months if we got nothing else, maybe we'll do like a retrospective on it where we kind of just read them all and kind of just come
Yeah,
back to talk about it all. Maybe we'll
yeah,
find
and who knows? And maybe there'll be more appearances by these characters later on, and we can talk more about that too. You never know.
Yep, straight
All
up.
right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
All right, later on, guys.